In 2002, the case of Suzanne von Richthofen gripped Brazil, a year when the nation's football team triumphed in the FIFA World Cup against Germany and Japan. This football-crazed country's main talking point shifted from soccer to Suzanne von Richthofen. Suzanne was born on November 3, 1983, in São Paulo, to a German father and a Brazilian mother. Her father, Manfred Albert von Richthofen, was an engineer and director of the state company for highway development in São Paulo, while her mother, Marija, was a psychiatrist of Lebanese descent. Suzanne also had a younger brother named Andreas, born in 1987. She attended a German high school before pursuing law at a Catholic university in São Paulo. Described as happy but somewhat shy, Suzanne enjoyed a close relationship with her parents and brother. The family lived comfortably in a gated community in the Campo Belo neighborhood of São Paulo. Well-educated, attractive, and from a wealthy family estimated to be worth $5.5 million in 2002, Suzanne seemed to have it all. In the summer of 1999, she began practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where she met Daniel Cravinhos dos Santos, who soon became her boyfriend. Initially, Suzanne's parents approved of her relationship with Daniel, but their opinion changed when they discovered he smoked marijuana daily, did not work or attend college, and came from a less than reputable neighborhood. In July 2002, while her parents were on vacation, Daniel moved in with Suzanne for a month, much to her delight. Upon their return, Suzanne suggested her parents buy her an apartment where she could live with Daniel, but her father refused, telling her she could do whatever she liked only if she earned the money herself. The strain between Suzanne and her parents grew as they pressured her to end the relationship, which she adamantly refused to do. They eventually threatened to cut off her allowance. On the night of October 31, 2002, Suzanne took her brother to a cyber cafe to meet friends and play video games. Later that evening, Suzanne, along with her boyfriend Daniel and his 26-year-old brother Christian, went to her home. Earlier that night, she had deactivated the burglar alarm and turned off the security cameras. Upon arrival, she opened the electric gates, drove into the garage, and Daniel and Christian donned hoods before entering the house. Suzanne went upstairs first, turning on the hallway light and verifying that her parents were asleep. She then sat on the couch downstairs while the brothers went upstairs to her parents' bedroom and bludgeoned them with iron bars. Despite suffering severe brain trauma, Suzanne's parents did not die immediately. To silence their cries, Daniel ran to the bathroom and returned with 2 wet towels, placing them over their faces. When this failed, he fetched a jug of water from the kitchen and attempted to drown them. This killed her father, Manfred, but her mother, Marija, still clung to life. They then tied a plastic bag over her head until she suffocated. Once it was over, Suzanne went upstairs to confirm her parents were dead. The trio then executed the second phase of their plan, staging the scene to look like a burglary. They pocketed cash they found and scattered papers around the house, creating a mess. However, the execution was sloppy. They left behind valuables such as cell phones and a gun, items burglars would never overlook. They did, however, take the family's stash of cash, a significant amount in both US dollars and euros. Afterward, Daniel and Suzanne checked into a motel to establish an alibi, while Christian went to a fast food restaurant. Just before 3 a.m., they checked out of the motel, and Suzanne dropped Daniel off before picking up her 15-year-old brother Andreas from an internet cafe. Together, they returned home, where they discovered the crime and called the police. Investigators quickly doubted it was a simple burglary gone wrong. Their suspicions were fueled not only by the oddities of the crime scene, the alarm system being switched off, the papers spread too deliberately, but also by Suzanne's eerie calmness. She was seen swimming in the pool with Daniel the day after the murder, even celebrated her 19th birthday with friends just hours after her parents' burial. The focus soon turned to Suzanne and her boyfriend. The breakthrough came when Christian bought a motorcycle a few days later, paying in $100 bills. On November 9, 2002, Christian, Daniel, and Suzanne were arrested. Suzanne quickly broke down and confessed to the murders. The investigation concluded within a week, generating massive media attention in Brazil due to the stark contrast between the brutality of the crime and Suzanne's persona. While the brothers fit the profile of uneducated, unemployed drug addicts, Suzanne was different. She was a pretty blonde girl from an upper-middle-class family of German and Lebanese descent, well-behaved, academically successful, multilingual, and trained in ballet. This juxtaposition shocked the nation, leaving many to question whether Suzanne was the mastermind or merely Daniel's pawn. Public opinion initially leaned towards sympathy for Suzanne, but this shifted dramatically during a televised interview. Before the cameras rolled, she had been instructed to cry loudly to elicit public pity. The ploy backfired, damaging her credibility instead. In July 2006, nearly 4 years after the murders, Suzanne, Daniel, and Christian stood trial in Sao Paulo for first-degree murder. During the trial, Suzanne blamed everything on Daniel, while the brothers claimed they acted at her behest. In court, Suzanne remained cold and emotionless, even laughing at one point, while the brothers frequently cried. Suzanne claimed she committed the crime out of love, fearing Daniel would leave her if her parents weren't killed. Her lawyer argued she had no motive and was coerced by Daniel, whom she adored like a god. Another possible motive was her parents' wealth, which Suzanne stood to inherit upon their deaths. The prosecution branded Suzanne the mastermind, accusing her of wanting her parents' money and assets without having to work for them. They demanded 50 years in prison for each defendant. Suzanne was described as the personification of the evil blonde. On July 22, 2006, Suzanne was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the crime. Daniel received the same sentence, while Christian was sentenced to 38 years for conspiracy. In 2009, Suzanne attempted to have her sentence changed to house arrest, but her appeal was denied. She tried again 2 years later, with the same result. In 2011, her younger brother Andreas sued her for her half of the inheritance, including the payout from their parents' life insurance policy, and won. The Suzanne von Richthofen case remains one of Brazil's most shocking crimes. It made people question how someone from a wealthy, educated background could commit such a brutal act. Her story shows how dangerous relationships and greed can lead to tragedy. Though Suzanne is in prison, the case still leaves a deep mark on society, reminding everyone of the devastating consequences of choices driven by selfishness and manipulation. It was 1991, and I was 8 years old, living in a quiet blue-collar neighborhood filled with middle-class working families and a scattering of retired couples enjoying their golden years. The houses were pre-manufactured, set up in a planned community with streets branching off the main roads, each ending in a cul-de-sac. Every little section had its own name, like the Heights or Narrow Windway. It was a safe place, safe enough that kids didn't always need supervision, giving us the freedom to play and have fun until the sun went down. I was the only girl in my part of the neighborhood, surrounded by a handful of boys. If I wanted to play house or have a tea party, I'd have to walk a block over to Alicia and Jasmine's place. But I didn't see them often since their family only used that house on weekends to escape the hustle of Baltimore city life. So, my playmate options were pretty limited, to say the least. Out of the 5 boys nearby, I clicked with Sean the most. Sean was sheltered by his mom, a woman who saw the good in everyone and couldn't resist taking in strays, and raised by a strict military dad. But Sean himself was warm and gentle, a perfect match for my shy, quiet nature. We got along great, playing together almost every day, and we quickly became close friends. That is, until the spring of 1991, April or May, I think. Sean and I were walking home from school like we always did, chatting about what we'd learned in class and the latest gossip swirling among our friends. A silver-gray sedan sped past us, probably over the speed limit. It wasn't anything too odd, and neither of us was street smart enough to pay it much mind. But I swear that car passed us 4 times, the last 2 slowing to a crawl as it rolled by. We kept walking, clueless to the danger trailing us. We turned onto a street a block or 2 from home, passing Mr. Johnson's house. Mr. Johnson was a grumpy old man, racist as hell to anyone who wasn't white, though he had a weird soft spot for Asians. My mom said it was a holdover from World War II, a time he couldn't let go of, and he'd never hold his tongue around them. We were told to steer clear of his yard, just to be safe. Instead, we'd cut across the street to Mr. Rosenberg's place. He was much nicer, and his wife would hand out free candy, which we'd take with big smiles. Sean suddenly got all excited, saying he'd found something a few days ago that I had to see. He said it was really cool, but that he'd stashed it somewhere in the bushes near Mr. Rosenberg's house and needed to dig it up again. I told him I didn't want to be grossed out by some weird thing he'd found and just wanted to keep heading home. He insisted, though, and darted off to hunt for it, leaving me standing there. I never got to see what it was. Two men came striding down the sidewalk at a fast clip, stopping every few steps to glance around. One of them held a collar in his hand, like they were looking for something. They spotted me waiting for Sean and walked over. I was wary at first, but they seemed polite. One was tall and skinny with a thick beard and a baseball cap, looming over me like my dad. The other was short, chubby, balding badly, and reeked like my friend Ash from school, a sour mix of sweat, mildewed clothes, and someone who hadn't showered in forever. They asked in a friendly but worried tone if I'd seen their puppy, describing it to me. I got so upset about this lost puppy that I started crying. They asked again if I'd seen it, showing me a photo that melted my heart. Before I knew it, I was off calling its name, eager to help find it. The tall guy kept shooting quick, nervous looks at the short one, while the short guy scanned around, probably for the puppy, I thought. I wandered into a yard to search, and then, out of nowhere, I felt hands around my waist. My feet left the ground as the tall man scooped me up with his massive arms and slung me over his shoulder. They bolted toward that same silver sedan that had been tailing us. I screamed at the top of my lungs, yelling for Sean, my parents, anyone to help, kicking and squirming with everything I had. I even bit the guy's hand to make him drop me, but they were stronger than me. His grip was like iron. They tossed me into the back seat with the tall guy, who was now bear-hugging me and cursing up a storm about the bite on his hand. The short guy hopped into the driver's seat. They slapped duct tape over my mouth and tied my hands and legs. I was so scared I peed my pants, the warm liquid soaking through and into the car seat. Tears streamed down my face as I whimpered through the tape, thrashing around, trying to fight. After what felt like hours of driving, exhaustion took over, my voice hoarse from screaming. My last thoughts were of that puppy, hoping it was safe before I passed out. When I woke up, I was in a pitch-black room, the only light coming from 3 tiny windows high up, maybe 10 feet off the ground. I couldn't see much, but I felt the tape was gone, though my wrist still had sticky residue from where it had been yanked off. I was too terrified to move from the wall I was pressed against, unsure what was out there in the dark. The blackness swallowed everything around me. I heard water rushing through pipes and footsteps creaking overhead, with doors occasionally opening or slamming shut. I figured I might be in a house. I screamed for help, sobbing, calling for my mom, my dad, wondering what happened to Sean, just totally confused about everything. My fear turned into raw anger at those men and their fake puppy story. I felt betrayed that they'd used something so innocent for something so evil. Eventually, hunger gnawed at me, and desperation made me brave. I stepped into the darkness, hands outstretched, feeling around. The room seemed endless, a huge empty space. After a while, I brushed against something rough and solid, a step. It was a staircase. I climbed carefully, trying not to make a sound, until I reached a door. I stretched up on my tiptoes to grab the knob, but it was locked. I sighed, sank onto the top step, and cried my heart out. I stumbled back down and collapsed where I thought I'd started, falling asleep. I woke to a door slamming open, my eyes adjusting to sunlight streaming through those high windows. In front of me was a paper bag with a familiar logo, the Golden Arches. I grinned, tore it open, and devoured the burger and fries inside, my stomach growling in approval. With the light, I could finally see my prison. Some cardboard boxes stacked in a far corner, loosely taped, and a single light with a short rope dangling in the center, way out of reach. The rest of the basement was bare. I stared at the windows as the light faded, hours slipping by until night fell again. Then I heard an engine, car doors, and the house door opening and closing. Footsteps shuffled above me. It seemed my kidnappers were back. The silence that followed was eerie, broken only by frogs and insects outside and the patter of rain. This was just the start of what was to come. I was trapped in a cold, damp room, stripped of everything I'd known, and utterly terrified. Weeks passed. I didn't keep track of the days. Food would appear randomly, either at the bottom of the stairs or nearby. They weren't home every day, so I'd go hungry for stretches, my own stench growing from not bathing. Don't even get me started on the lack of toilet paper. I tried escaping by dragging the boxes to the windows and climbing them, but they buckled under me, and I couldn't fit more than my torso through anyway. One day stood out, though. I heard their car pull up, but there was an extra voice I didn't recognize. They went inside, and the floor creaked as people moved around. After a while, someone shouted, followed by frantic commotion, things crashing, pounding footsteps, yelling. The noise was overwhelming, with heavy thuds shaking the ceiling and glass shattering. Then it stopped as fast as it started. Gunshots rang out, followed by another sound, then silence. A voice muttered something angry a few moments later, a door slammed, and it went quiet again. Days passed with no one coming back, no food either. My stomach was eating itself, and I slept as much as I could to ignore the hunger pangs. I jolted awake to the door upstairs unlocking. Light spilled down the stairs, casting a silhouette of a figure lumbering down, groaning with each step. I shrank into a corner, trying to hide, but there was nowhere to go. He flicked on the light I couldn't reach, flooding the room. It was the short, fat guy who'd taken me, holding a small handgun, wheezing like Darth Vader. He barked at me to stand and marched me out of the basement at gunpoint, the first time I'd seen anything beyond that dungeon. I tried to peek out windows or spot clues about where I was, but he rushed me up another flight of stairs and down a hall to a small room. He yanked my hair and shoved me inside. It had a little bed and pink wallpaper, a big step up from the basement. I'd love to say things improved, but they only got worse. I later learned they kept me downstairs because they didn't know what to do with me. That ruckus I'd heard, a deal gone wrong. They tried to sell me, but it backfired, and the tall guy and the buyer ended up dead. The door locked behind me with multiple deadbolts. I paced the room, checking it out. The windows were covered with black towels, stapled tight and nailed shut. I opened the closet, empty except for some hangers. I flopped onto the bed and eventually drifted off. I woke to heavy, guttural breathing. The fat guy was standing over me, camcorder in hand, filming me as I slept, who knows for how long. "Good morning," he rasped. "Did you sleep well?" I was petrified. Up close, he was even worse. A droopy face like a pit bull, double chin, stubby yellowish fingers, a gut spilling out from under his shirt, blotchy legs, and loose, sagging skin on his arms. He stank like a sweaty locker room, making it hard to breathe. He stood there, mouth breathing, recording me, muttering compliments. I was too scared to speak or move, frozen by this new nightmare. He rambled on, half his words garbled by his weird accent, then left, locking the deadbolts behind him. He didn't bother me again until night, when I flinched at the sound of the locks. He waddled in with a camcorder, wheezing, "I have a special gift for you, my sweet angel. First, we get you cleaned up." I hadn't bathed since before I was taken, probably reeking, but I'd gotten used to it. He grabbed my wrist, and I fought back, clawing his face and slapping him weakly. His grip was too strong, though he tired fast, panting heavily. He pinned me down, crushing my ribs with his weight until I gave in. He hauled me to a door I hadn't noticed, yanked it open, a full bathroom with a toilet, shower, and sink. He left briefly, returning with that creepy grin and the camcorder. He ordered me to strip and bathe. I protested, saying I could wash myself and wouldn't undress with him there. He set the camera on the sink, aimed it at the tub, and lunged at me. Another struggle, another loss. He clumsily peeled off my clothes as I sobbed and begged him to stop. Naked, I tried covering myself, feeling violated by his hungry stare. He turned on the water, picked up the camera, and zoomed in on my face and chest, spewing disgusting praise. He told me to get in the tub. I did, shutting off the water when it was full. He sat on the toilet, filming, legs spread, zooming in and out, hovering close for shots. I cried, pleading for him to stop, but he ignored me. When I didn't obey, he'd yank my hair or choke me until I complied. He told me to wash all sexy-like with a soap and rag. I did it whimpering. Then he made me lather up and twirl for him. That's when I noticed his hand in his pants, rubbing himself hard. I'd never seen anything like it and looked away fast. Eventually, he said bath time was over, tossed me a towel, and marched me back to the room, thrilled with himself. "Now I have a present for you," he said, locking me in. He returned with a bag, dropping it by the bed. "Go ahead, open it. You earned it for being a good girl." I hesitated but unwrapped it, glittery purple tissue paper, hiding the most beautiful gown I'd ever seen, like a Disney princess dress. My face lit up, and for a split second, I was overjoyed, until I remembered who gave it to me. Still naked under the towel, with no other clothes since he'd taken mine to wash, I slipped it on. He kept filming. "How do you like it?" he wheezed. Caught off guard, I blurted, "I love it." He beamed. I fell asleep in that dress, the start of a dark spiral. He latched onto my reaction, and soon outfits piled up. Cowgirl, nurse, maid, which bee, you name it. He'd film me in them, posing, bending over, whatever he wanted. I started liking them despite everything. They were pretty, and I was too young to grasp why he did it. He was working up to worse, but back then he was still too scared to touch me. I won't detail everything, but it was brutal. Black eyes, fractured arms, and yes, molestation. I stopped crying much, except when I thought of my parents. I figured out he had a routine, maybe a job. The house would go quiet for hours, then I'd hear his car in the front door. It was usually silent otherwise, no friends, no music except rare times I couldn't place. I'd mess with the lock daily, but with no tools and tight deadbolts, it was hopeless. I passed time lost in my head or dressing up. As much as I hated it, the clothes were gorgeous and distracted me briefly. Over the years, he lost weight. His arms and legs toned, his gut shrank, his breathing eased up, no more Darth Vader wheezes. But his double chin sagged like a turkey neck now, and I became his punching bag. When he came home mad, he beat me senseless. Bruises and purples and blues, swollen eyes, yanked out hair, kicks to the stomach, maybe even a busted leg once or twice. He once held a scorching knife to my throat, taunting me. I fought back. I wasn't that frail 8-year-old anymore, but it didn't matter. I think I convinced myself I liked him, some twisted survival instinct or Stockholm syndrome, needing his approval in that toxic mess. One day was different. He was in and out of the house all day, and it sounded like others were with him, lots of footsteps, heated talks. Later, boots stomped upstairs. The locks clicked, and the door flew open. Him and 6 other men piled in, hooting and swearing. They locked the door, and what happened next lasted hours. No need to spell it out. The prostitution ramped up after that. More men, more often. I fought at first, but they always won, so I stopped resisting and just took it. Afterward, I'd crawl to the shower, sobbing, wishing I could end it. I tried, biting my tongue, swallowing shampoo or soap, endless cramps and diarrhea followed, drowning in a tub, cutting my wrist with a hanger, leaving a scar I still have. Nothing worked. I either wimped out or botched it. After one gangbang, I missed my period for months. By the 3rd, I knew I was pregnant, freaking out about carrying some rapist kid. Could have been any of them. He didn't care, kept the men coming. The beatings lightened up, though. He'd laugh about me having a girl he'd take care of, calling me a baby machine. I swore I wouldn't let him or his sick Johns have my child. 4 months in, I was treated better, still pimped out, but no beatings. Then I miscarried, probably from stress. Turns out some Johns had a pregnancy fetish, drooling over my belly and growing chest. They vowed to keep me pregnant. Sure enough, I had a kid later. From 13 to 15, I raised my baby while being sold off whenever he needed cash. I started using heroin, MDMA, anything to numb it all. 3 months after my 16th birthday, I was saved. In court, I learned a lot. His name, that he was 55, worked a dull call center job. He tried snatching 2 other girls, 9 and 12, but failed. Too many people or practice runs. He'd been questioned once after being seen with a girl at a park, but got off due to no proof. What did him in was one of his Johns getting busted with drugs. A search turned up a VHS of me, and the guy snitched, spilling everything. Cops watched him for months, piling up evidence, not just on him but his whole network. The snitch got a lighter sentence. I didn't testify. The evidence was enough. I went to court whenever I could. He got life, no parole. They nabbed some of the Johns too, locking them up. That's my story. I'm 25 now, living in Southwest Arizona with a kind husband who took years to grasp what I'd been through. I've got 2 kids, one from that hell, one with him. I still wrestle with panic attacks and PTSD, working with counselors and therapists to heal. It broke my parents too. They divorced, and my mom died not knowing where I was. If you've read this far, thanks. It wasn't easy to tell. When this happened, my friends and I were all around 14 or 15 years old. We were living abroad in Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic, where we attended an international school. The 5 of us were incredibly tight-knit, like a little family. Our parents generally trusted us to roam around on our own in the safer parts of Prague, mostly near our school, which becomes important later. During the summer, we'd sometimes head out to the theme park instead of sticking to our usual hangouts. More often than not, our parents would tag along with our siblings, which meant we didn't do it much. It was too hard to coordinate, and we didn't get enough time to ourselves. Looking back, I totally get why they always insisted on staying close and keeping us together. On one of those theme park trips in late August, my friend Emma met a local guy who was a year older than her. Let's call him Alex. She spoke the best Czech out of all of us, so they hit off easily and swapped phone numbers to keep in touch. Right away, I got a bad vibe from this guy. He didn't look 16 to me, and his eyes creepily wandered all over her body. When we finally started walking back to our parents, I grabbed her arm and told her she should delete his number because he gave off a seriously sketchy aura. Being the shortest in our group, my friends, especially my best ones, often looked out for me the most whenever we got into sticky situations. I'll admit I was pretty naive back then, which didn't help my case. Emma just laughed off my suggestion and said I was being paranoid about strangers. Still, that uneasy feeling stuck with me. While we were waiting in line for a ride, Emma kept talking about him. Mackenzie, my closest friend by far, noticed something was off with me and asked what was wrong while we sat together on the Czech version of It's a Small World. I told her about my gut feeling, how Alex seemed like a fake teenage guy hiding something shady. Mackenzie took me seriously, thank goodness, and helped me bring it up to Emma, Chloe, and Camille. Emma and Chloe thought we were being ridiculous, but Camille wasn't so sure. Looking back, they probably figured we were just spooked by those horror stories about girls getting trafficked into the sex trade. We didn't get anywhere with it, though, and eventually we had to drop it and move on to the next ride. Mackenzie made Camille and me promise to help her keep an eye on Emma, but not tell her. She'd clam up and hide everything if she knew we were watching. We also agreed not to tell our parents unless things got really bad. That whole don't snitch logic was classic 14 and 15-year-old thinking. It nearly cost us Emma. Alex and Emma started talking on the phone constantly and soon began going on dates. She never told her parents about him and would even skip practice to meet up with him. It bugged the hell out of us, but there was no convincing her to let her parents meet him so she could stop sneaking around. As time went on, Emma got more wrapped up in him, talking about their first kiss and falling deeper into whatever this was. By mid-October, she ditched us during one of our mall hangouts to go see him. Chloe was sick that day, and with no one to stop us, we decided to tail her and figure out where she was meeting him. Staying about 7 meters back, we watched her head toward the edge of the city center and slip into a rundown coffee shop. From a safe distance, we saw her and Alex sit outside, chatting and sipping coffee. They kissed a few times, but Alex had this eerie look, like it was all lust, not love. That flipped Camille to our side instantly since she and Mackenzie hadn't seen him in person yet. We left, went back to my place, and started plotting how to convince Emma this guy was a total creep. Before we could even get started, though, Emma called us, gushing about how she thought he was the one. We tried telling her that if they were so serious, she should let her parents meet him. She flat out refused and accused us of being jealous. We denied it, apologized, and she eventually hung up after asking about our weekend homework. At that point, we realized things were bad enough to bring in our parents. It was the only option left. We were terrified of ruining our friendship with Emma and Chloe, but we hoped Emma might still be out with Alex. We raced to her house, and luckily, her mom was home with her little brother. We spilled everything, and her mom was visibly upset. We made her promise not to tell Emma we'd snitched, suggesting instead that she could say she'd found out by checking phone records. Feeling lighter after unloading all that, we went back to my place and hung out in my room until Mackenzie and Camille had to head home. The next day at school, Emma and Chloe confronted us furious. They'd probably figured out we'd ratted her out and said they were done being friends with us. I was devastated, but Camille and Mackenzie reassured me they'd come around eventually. I wasn't convinced our friendship would ever recover, but I told myself we'd done the right thing. A couple of weeks later, while Camille was over at my place, the doorbell rang. It was Emma, Chloe, and Mackenzie, their eyes red like they'd been crying. I let them in right away, and we all sat around my kitchen table. Mackenzie filled me in on what had happened after Emma's parents stepped in. Emma had kept trying to reach Alex, leaving notes in her window with meetup spots. She and Chloe would cover for her, telling her parents she was at Chloe's while she snuck out to see him. This went on about 3 times over 3 or 4 weeks. On the second meetup, Alex convinced her to run away with him to his uncle's place in Moldova, a country west of Ukraine. By the third time, Emma packed a bag of clothes, pretending she was sleeping over at Chloe's. Instead, she biked to the train station and waited for Alex at a cafe near the platforms. They talked for a bit, and he gave her a muffin he'd supposedly bought on the way. Minutes after she left, her dad called Chloe's house to say she'd forgotten her teeth guards for grinding and that he'd drop them off later. Chloe's mom told him there was no sleepover planned. Since we were so close, like sisters, our parents trusted each other enough to check with us or our friends instead of just taking our word for it. Thankfully, Emma's dad put it together fast. He drove to the train station, spotted her bike in the racks outside, and rushed through the station looking for her. Before he even got inside, he saw Alex and 2 older guys carrying Emma toward a big gray van. He charged at them, shouting, making a huge scene. They dropped her, bolted to the van, and peeled out. When her dad checked on her, she was out cold, likely drugged with something to knock her out. She was taken to the doctor to make sure she was okay, and the police got involved. They investigated but never tracked down Alex. The cops told her parents about how young girls get groomed, kidnapped, and trafficked to places like Serbia or Russia for the sex trade. Camille and I listened to Mackenzie recount all this, horrified. When she finished, Emma broke down crying. She and Chloe apologized for not listening to us. We hugged it out and spent hours at my place rebuilding our bond. Since then, our friendship's been stronger than ever. Our school even adopted an unspoken rule: let your family meet whoever you're dating. That experience still haunts me, even though it didn't happen to me directly. If you get a weird feeling about someone, trust your gut. Don't wait. This happened back in 2007 when I was 9 years old and my brother was 14. My mom had sent us out of the house with about $30 to catch a movie and maybe grab something to eat afterward. After the movie, it was pretty dark outside, and I was ready to head home, but my brother wanted to stop for food first. We agreed to walk to McDonald's, which was just a couple of blocks from the theater. On our way there, a man stopped us. He had a friendly smile plastered on his face and was holding a little boy's hand. At first glance, nothing seemed off about him. He looked average, like any dad out with his kid. "Hey, do you think you could give my son and me a hand real quick?" he asked. "We need help loading a mattress onto the back of our truck." "It's just up the road." "Sorry, but we don't really have time," my brother replied. That's when I noticed the little boy. He was about 8, painfully thin, with a blank expression on his face. His clothes hung off him, way too big for his small frame. I shifted my focus back to the man, who was now mumbling to my brother about how it'd only take a few seconds. My brother politely turned him down again. Being the overly helpful kid I was, though, I piped up and tried to convince my brother we should just help them out. I glanced at him, and he was staring down at the boy with a disturbed look on his face. The boy stared back, still blank. I didn't get why my brother looked so rattled. Suddenly, he grabbed my hand and said, "I think that's Mom over there." He yanked me away, and we started walking off. I was confused. Why had he just lied about Mom being there? He didn't let go of my hand, practically dragging me until we were far away from the man and the boy. I glanced back and saw them still standing there. The man wasn't smiling anymore. He looked pissed, yanking the boy by the arm as they walked off. I pulled free from my brother and hit him with a barrage of questions. He shushed me, pulled his cell phone out of his pocket, and dialed a number. He paced around nervously while talking. Soon after, the police showed up, and my mom arrived not long after that. She took me home, leaving my brother with the cops. I asked her what was going on, and she just said the police were questioning him because the man we'd run into was dangerous. That's all she told me, and I went to bed. By the next morning, I'd pretty much forgotten about it, and life went back to normal. It wasn't until a few days ago that those memories came flooding back. I decided to call my brother, he's 22 now, to get some answers. When I brought it up, he finally filled me in on everything, and now I realized just how damn terrifying that encounter really was. He told me that while the man was busy trying to talk us into going with him, he glanced at the boy. The boy looked up at him, his eyes full of terror, and silently mouthed, "I'm not his son. Please help me." Then his face went blank again, like nothing had happened. That's why my brother freaked out and pulled me away so fast. When he called the police, they rushed over, and he described the man as best he could. But with so little to go on, they didn't even see the truck the guy mentioned. The cops couldn't do much. A few weeks into the investigation, they found the boy. He was dead. His body had been dumped in the woods, and they said he died of malnutrition and dehydration. If my brother had gone with that bastard, we might have ended up the same way. The guy couldn't have taken us both. My brother was pretty strong for his age, so he probably had someone else waiting to help grab unsuspecting kids. The police never caught the sick jerks responsible, but they confirmed the man wasn't the boy's father. His real parents had been searching for him for almost a month. Those monsters had kidnapped him and used him as a lure to trick other kids. Every time I think about that boy, my heart sinks. He was just a year younger than me back then, and I can't imagine how awful it must have been to slowly starve like that. To the disgusting creep who starves and kills kids, you better hope I never cross paths with you. This happened back in 2010 when I was 15. I was living with my mom, my sister, and my little brother in a pretty rough part of Western Australia. My mom did an amazing job keeping us away from the shadier areas of our suburb 98% of the time, but my brother, he was 11 then, and I were reckless kids who loved pushing the boundaries whenever we could. One day, Mom told us she was heading to the shops to grab stuff for dinner, so I need to watch the house. I said no problem, and for about 45 minutes, everything was fine. Then my little brother came into the room and asked if I wanted to kick a football around at the park just around the corner. I can't recall the exact time, but it was definitely past 5:30, and it was starting to get dark. I told him Mom would be pissed if we went, but he kept begging, and eventually I caved. I told him to wait while I changed into my sneakers and shorts. When I came back to the living room, he was gone. I checked the front door. Sure enough, it was wide open. I yelled to my sister, who was 18, asking if she knew where the little shit had gone. She said he told her to tell me he was heading to the park. By then, the sun had set, and it was dark outside. I told her to keep an eye on the house and bolted toward the park. I got there about 5 minutes later, and to my surprise, it was completely empty. I called out his name, telling him to quit messing around. No answer. I shouted again, this time saying Mom was home and seriously mad at us, wanting us back now. Still nothing. That's when I started to panic. Normally, he'd fall for that trick, even at home, and do what I said. Then I heard a faint, muffled sound coming from my left. I looked over and saw a tall figure dart behind the big fence running along the side of the park. My body kicked into overdrive, adrenaline pumping, and I sprinted around to the other side of the fence. I nearly choked when I saw my little brother, shorts off, mouth covered, being dragged down the alley by some guy who looked like he was in his mid-40s or 50s, with long, messy hair. Most people would have screamed, but for some reason, don't ask me why, I just ran straight at him as hard as I could. I had tears in my eyes, but I wasn't scared for my brother. I was furious. I was ready to kill this bastard. He must have heard me coming because he turned around, saw me, and dropped my brother. I covered about 20 meters and was less than half a meter away. He tried to grab me, but I kept charging and knocked him flat on his back. He swore and tried to get up, but I lost it. I started stomping on his face and stomach. I was ready to keep going until this jerk was dead, but then I heard my brother crying loudly behind me. Reason kicked in. Without saying a word, I scooped him up and ran as fast as I could back to our house. By then, it was pitch black. Mom was home and freaking out. She was about to lay into us, but she stopped dead when she saw our faces and noticed my brother had no shorts on. After I explained what happened, she wrapped us both in the biggest hug and cried with us. We called the police right after, and they asked me to describe the guy as best I could. I did what I could. Lucky for me, he was a scrawny creep, not some jacked up lunatic who preys on kids. My brother told me the guy had snuck up behind him and pinned him down but stopped stripping him when he heard me shout his name. To this day, I'm so damn grateful I didn't get there a second later and that I managed to get my brother back safe. Needless to say, we moved out of that suburb soon after. Now we're in a solid upper middle class area up north. Good riddance to that hellhole. Alright, so I know this sounds insane. Like, full-on bats hit crazy. But fuck it, I need to get this out of my head before I lose my mind completely. This happened last night, or at least I think it did. My memory's a little fuzzy because, well, you'll see why. Let me start from the beginning. It was just another shitty Tuesday evening, and I'm pulling an overnight shift at this 24-hour gas station/convenience store on the outskirts of town. You know the type, cheap fluorescent lights buzz like angry wasps overhead, stale coffee sits in cracked pots that haven't been cleaned since Obama was president, and every now and then some sketchy dude comes in asking for cigarettes or lottery tickets at 3 a.m. Not exactly glamorous, but hey, rent doesn't pay itself. So there I am, sitting behind the counter scrolling through Reddit memes to pass the time when this guy walks in around midnight. At first glance, he seemed harmless enough, a tall, lanky dude wearing one of those big puffy parkas, even though it wasn't that cold outside. His hood was up, covering most of his face, and he had dirt smudged all over his jacket like he'd been rolling around in someone's backyard flower bed. He didn't say anything as he shuffled toward the snack aisle, dragging his feet like they weighed 50 pounds each. Weird, sure, but not unheard of around here. People come in looking rough all the time. I went back to browsing our /shower thoughts while keeping half an eye on him through the security mirror hanging above the chips. That's when things started feeling off. For one, he wasn't grabbing snacks like normal customers do. Instead, he stood there staring at the shelves like they were written in ancient Sumerian or something. Every few seconds, he'd cock his head slightly to the side, almost like he was listening for something only he could hear. Then he'd mutter under his breath, low guttural noises that sounded more animal than human. Honestly, it creeped me the hell out. After what felt like forever, he finally picked up a bag of beef jerky and brought it to the register. Up close, he smelled like wet leaves and old sweat, with maybe a hint of gasoline mixed in. Gross combo, let me tell you. But what really got to me was his face, or rather, how much of it I couldn't see. The hood shadowed everything except his mouth, which twitched nervously as he handed over a crumpled $5 bill. I gave him his change without making eye contact, because who need that kind of awkwardness, and he left without saying a word. Relieved, I went back to zoning out behind the counter. But about 20 minutes later, I noticed something weird outside. Through the glass doors, I could see him standing near the edge of the parking lot, still wearing that goddamn parka. Only now he was facing the store, arms crossed over his chest like he was waiting for something, or someone. A chill ran down my spine, but I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just taking a break before heading wherever homeless dudes go after midnight. Whatever. As long as he stayed out there, I figured I was good. Fast forward another hour, and guess what? Still there. Same pose, same creepy vibe. By this point, I was starting to freak out a little. Who stands outside a gas station for 3 hours doing absolutely nothing? So I called my manager, hoping she'd come down and deal with it, but no dice. She said if he wasn't causing trouble, there wasn't much we could do. Great advice, thanks, Karen. Anyway, I decided to distract myself by cleaning up the mess left by the morning shift. You ever notice how gross convenience stores are? Like, seriously, crumbs everywhere, sticky floors, and don't even get me started on the bathroom. Anyway, I grabbed the mop bucket and started scrubbing near the front entrance when, bam, the power cuts out. Just like that. No warning, no flickering lights, just total darkness. Now keep in mind, this place is already creepy enough during the day. At night, forget about it. Without the fluorescents buzzing overhead, the silence was deafening. All I could hear was my own breathing and the faint hum of the fridge compressors in the background. I fumbled around for my phone, using its flashlight app to navigate back to the counter where the emergency light switch was supposed to be. Except, it wasn't working either. Either the backup generator was busted, or someone had tampered with it. Neither option filled me with confidence. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate ones coming from somewhere behind me. My blood froze. I spun around, shining my phone's flashlight toward the source of the sound, but the beam barely penetrated the pitch-black void surrounding me. And then, out of nowhere, he appeared. The guy in the parka. Standing right in front of me, less than 10 feet away. Holy shit, I nearly pissed myself. He didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, staring at me with those hidden eyes of his. Or at least, I assumed he was staring. With that hood pulled so low, it was impossible to tell. What was clear, though, was the smell. That same nauseating mix of filth and decay, only stronger now, like it was oozing straight out of him. I gagged, backing away until my back hit the counter. "Oh, can I help you?" I stammered, trying to sound braver than I felt. No response. Just that unnerving stillness, broken only by the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath his weight. Then, slowly, deliberately, he raised one gloved hand and pointed at me. Not aggressively, not threateningly, just pointed. Like he was singling me out for something. And that's when I realized something was very, very wrong. Because despite the fact that he hadn't moved an inch, I could feel his presence closer. Much closer. like he was standing right next to me, breathing down my neck, which shouldn't have been possible given the layout of the store. But logic doesn't apply to whatever the fuck this was anymore. I bolted, dropped my phone, kicked over the mop bucket, and sprinted toward the exit as fast as my legs would carry me. The automatic doors weren't responding, probably due to the power outage, so I yanked them open manually and burst into the freezing night air. Behind me, I heard the faint jingle of the door chime, signaling that he was following me. I didn't look back. Couldn't. I just ran, heart pounding, lungs burning, until I reached my car parked a block away. Fumbling with my keys, I unlocked the door and practically dove inside, slamming it shut behind me. That's when I noticed something horrifying. There, reflected in my rearview mirror, was the man in the parka, sitting in the passenger seat. How the actual fuck did he get there? I screamed, swerving wildly as I tried to unlock the door and push him out at the same time. But when I turned to confront him directly, the seat was empty. Completely empty. No sign of him anywhere. Just the lingering stench of rot and gasoline filling the cabin. Shaking uncontrollably, I peeled out of the parking lot and drove home as fast as I could. Didn't stop once. Not for red lights, not for stop signs, not even when a cop car passed me going the other direction. If he wanted to pull me over, fine. At least I'd be safe in custody. When I finally made it home, I locked every door and window, checked under the bed, and barricaded myself in my bedroom with a baseball bat clutched in my sweaty hands. I haven't slept since. Every time I close my eyes, I see that fucking parka looming in the shadows, waiting for me. Oh, and here's the kicker. This morning, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. Written in jagged, uneven letters, it read, "You should have stayed." What the hell does that mean? Is he still out there? Watching me? Waiting for me to leave again? I don't know, and honestly, I don't want to find out. But if anyone sees a guy in a dirty parka lurking around their neighborhood, please call the cops. Or better yet, burn the motherfucker alive. Whatever works.